clouds came swooping in today. Looks like it could rain any second. I guess with that in mind, what did I read today? Lots of interesting stuff actually. How about this first one? A lot more people are using drones, authority figures for example, but it sounds like here they want the skies just for themselves. This one here says, HFD is expanding its drone program to save more lives. The problem? Crowded skies. The Honolulu Fire Department continues to expand its drone program, upgrading the technology to respond to more emergencies. Above massive fires at businesses and over brush, a drone can guide firefighters on the ground to hot spots or out of danger zones. So all in all, they just keep talking about the benefits of it, trying to find, for example, lost people, go into areas that would otherwise be too dangerous for a person to actually go themselves. But it says here, but that doesn't mean drones are without risk. For officials, say spectators using personal drones for social media videos are making it harder to do their job. Saying here, quote, it not only affects our operations, but it also affects the safety of our personnel, Kennard said, adding HFD had to ground their drone during a recent brush fire because 3 other civilian drones took positions above the fire. Air 1, the department's helicopter, has also had to land because civilian drones got in the way. The only thing we can do right now when drones interfere is to back off because we have no way of communicating with that drone operator, Kennard said. If a private drone is flying in the emergency airspace, HFD notifies the Honolulu Police Department. A spokesperson for HPD said a patrol officer is sent to try and locate the drone operator to ask them to land. If the operator cannot be found, HPD reports the incident to the FAA for follow-up. It could be a violation if the drone operator is found to have interfered with first responder operations during an emergency, the HPD spokesperson said. So ultimately, it's one of those situations where there's an emergency situation. Even here, there's a lot of stories normally where they say this one drone stops them from doing their whole operation. And while that could potentially be true in terms of the danger, I'd wonder how dangerous is it for whatever they were doing for you to actually stop that completely? Because I bring up the point again, if there was a flock of Canadian geese or something like that flying in the airspace around a forest fire, would you actually land all your helicopters, your quote drones and so forth? I highly doubt it, correct? You wouldn't go on this whole massive hunt saying, okay, where are those animals? Call animal control to capture them and so forth before we could continue. So from that aspect, it seems like it's a little bit, I guess, over the top and over exaggerated, because the concern there would be you want the whole airspace for quote yourself. There should never be anyone else, I guess. On the other end, I don't think there's anyone that would disagree where if somebody is literally flying their drone near theirs purposely, I guess, just trying to get footage and all that, then yeah, they should not do that and they should be dealt with appropriately. But again, the concern is here is so general, and for a lot of places when it comes to these types of quote, I guess, emergencies, the no-fly zones are so humongous, even if people aren't even, say, close to the operation. Just from logic and common sense, for example, the roads are definitely crowded all the time, especially during like what? Rush hour traffic. So how do we do that? Do we say, okay, we ban all cars now from driving during, I don't know, like those rush hour times just so you could have emergency vehicles, have like a free lane? You don't do that, correct? You basically have certain guidelines and procedures. Loud sirens and all that, people are supposed to give them the right of way and so forth. So you just need to establish, in my opinion, basic common sense stuff like that. Like in those cases, not 100% of the people are going to follow directions. I mean, I've seen like pedestrians, for example, all the cars stop during a siren, but for some reason they cross the road and there's like a screaming car coming down. Like, what are you doing? So to say, for example, oh, it's crowded and all that, I don't think that would be the answer if that is the direction, saying, oh, ban them all per se. There needs to be better procedures in place that are more common sense oriented, not basically making it so confusing, so over the top. People need to read like what? All these no-TAM reports and all that. In my opinion, the average person just doesn't have the time to look at all that stuff. You need to make it crystal clear in every single way, while at the same time not taking away people's rights to use something that's perfectly safe. And this was really fascinating to think about. Apparently on that Joe Rogan podcast, it's really huge, he interviewed Mark Zuckerberg, who's the founder of Facebook, and throughout the past couple of years, there's been a lot of, I guess, criticism about social media platforms basically censoring people, they're biased when it comes to certain stories, and this one actually kind of, I guess, showed there was communication from them and officials to ban, I guess, or block, suppress, whatever you want to say, certain stories. It's kind of interesting. It dealt with that story where apparently the president's son left his laptop at a repair shop per se, didn't recover it, so basically it was the repair shop's, I guess, property now, and in that laptop there were tons of details that seemed kind of scandalous. Now apparently, I guess, when this was first released in the public, lots of platforms like Twitter and Facebook, they were actually, say, banning or suppressing people from actually talking about this, saying it's fake, misinformation or whatever, and in recent times it ended up to be true. So during this interview, it seemed like it kind of implied that the FBI or something like that actually told them directly, like, hey, there might be stories of this and that, so watch out, like, I guess in relation to things like this laptop and stuff too. Now think about that, this story ended up to be true, so if that department did actually coordinate with them to say, you know, block this, censor that, that's kind of bad, isn't it? You can kind of hear like some quotes and stuff in that interview.
Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York
we
Post.
had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. The distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful.
To me, that's kind of terrifying to think about, because you can change the topic to anything else, where if a platform does that, where they coordinate with officials, where they determined, hey, this is the truth and that's not the truth, with no type of, I guess, investigation, due diligence, it's basically controlling speech in many ways, correct? Like there, I've even said before, how do you determine what's true and what's not when you don't have all the facts? If you're constantly suppressing one side, you're basically saying, well, ours is the truth, just accept it, that's it, no questions asked. And if they end up to be liars, can you imagine how many people, depending on the topic, would be harmed because of that? All right, see you guys later.